Imagine waking up in a world where you are no longer seen as a person, just a number. Your name, your history, your hopes, all wiped away in an instant. You are herded into a place where survival doesn't depend on strength or smarts, but pure, ruthless chance. The air hangs heavy with hopelessness. Walls echo with the sobs of the broken. Every day, people vanish, knowing they will never come back. Most would break under such crushing despair, their spirit crushed by endless suffering. But one man refused to surrender. Not only did he survive, he uncovered something profound, something so deeply human that it redefines how we understand life and pain. That man was Viktor Frankl. In the darkest corners of a Nazi concentration camp, where hope flickered like a dying candle in a storm, Frankl found a truth that defied the shadows. A truth that turned unimaginable suffering into a source of strength. When everything was stripped from him, he discovered one thing: no prison, no cruelty could ever steal meaning. And what if I told you this discovery could be the missing piece in your own life? Frankl didn't just survive. He emerged with a philosophy that has guided millions through their darkest moments. A philosophy that might just hold the key to the struggles you face right now. This is the story of a man who cracked the code to life's meaning, and by the end of this video, you'll understand how his secret can transform yours. Long before Viktor Frankl became the man who reshaped our understanding of suffering, he was just a boy growing up in early 20th century Vienna, a city buzzing with intellectual energy, where Freud was revolutionizing psychology and café debates sparked endless discussions about philosophy, art, and the meaning of existence. Amidst it all was young Viktor, curious, sharp, restless, born in 1905 to a modest Jewish family. Frankl's fascination with the human mind ignited early. While other kids played, he was lost in thought, wondering why people behaved the way they did, why some shattered under pressure while others persevered, and most of all, what gave life its meaning. By his teenage years, these questions had evolved from idle curiosity to a deep passion. Frankl was drawn to psychology and philosophy, not as abstract subjects, but as urgent, personal quests. Vienna, like much of Europe, was still reeling from the horrors of World War I. Cities lay in ruins, economies collapsed, and a generation was left disillusioned and desperate. For many young people, life felt meaningless. Depression and suicide were rising, and despair seeped into every corner of the city. Frankl saw this crisis up close in his classmates, his neighbors, even the streets he walked every day. He couldn't ignore it. While most teenagers worried about grades or social status, Frankl was grappling with life's biggest questions. How do you find meaning when everything falls apart? What keeps a person going when hope seems lost? These questions would shape the rest of his life. Decades later, imprisoned in a concentration camp, Frankl watched as people lost everything: family, dignity, future. But he noticed something extraordinary. Those who clung to a sense of purpose, however small, were more likely to survive. It wasn't just physical strength, it was the will to find meaning, even in suffering. This insight led to his revolutionary idea that meaning can be found in any circumstance, even the worst imaginable. That suffering, when faced with courage and perspective, becomes a pathway to growth and resilience. So, if you're struggling with hardship or searching for direction, remember Frankl's lesson: you may not control what happens to you, but you always have the power to choose your response. Meaning is not something you find by chance, it's something you create, even when life tries to tear you down. And that, more than anything else, can change everything. What keeps people from giving up on life when everything seems lost? That was the question that haunted Viktor Frankl from a young age. Driven to understand the force that pulls people through despair, he devoted himself to medicine, specializing in neurology and psychiatry. But unlike his classmates who treated humans as objects to be studied, Frankl wanted to reach deeper. He sought to understand not just the brain but the soul. By his early 20s, Frankl was already working with students on the brink of suicide. But his approach was different. Traditional therapists focused on the past, on traumas, unconscious urges, and buried wounds. Frankl took a radically different path. Instead of digging into pain, he asked a simple, profound question: what is the reason you still want to live? What makes life worth enduring, even in the worst moments? For one young man, it was the dream of becoming a writer. For another, it was the love they had yet to confess. For some, it was the knowledge that their existence mattered somewhere, to someone. Through these conversations, Frankl noticed a pattern. Those who held on to even the smallest purpose could survive unimaginable suffering. This insight would become the foundation of his life's work. But just as Frankl's career was gaining momentum, the world changed again. The 1930s brought the rise of Nazi ideology, a storm of hate, fear, and division. Jewish intellectuals like Frankl felt the walls closing in. By 1938, when Germany annexed Austria, life had grown dangerous and uncertain. Frankl faced a choice: flee to America, where he had an offer to continue his research, or stay in Vienna with his family, his people, and his patients. He chose to stay, a decision that would test his beliefs and his spirit in ways no one could predict. In 1942, everything changed. One sudden knock, no warning, no time to prepare. Armed soldiers burst in, barking orders. Frankl barely had time to grab a few belongings before he, his wife, parents, and brother were forced onto a train bound for a place no one wanted to imagine. Theresienstadt, a Nazi concentration camp. For weeks, they were packed into cattle cars, suffocating in the stench of sweat, fear, and death. The journey was torture: no food, no water, no hint of what lay ahead. Then the train came to a screeching halt. Doors flew open, brutal commands tore through the air.
Rouse! Chill! Out! Quickly!
And just like that, Viktor Frankl's old life was over. A respected doctor, a scholar, a man with a purpose, he became a prisoner, reduced to a number. His medical degree, his accomplishments, his identity, all meaningless in the face of the camp's cruelty. Within months, his father starved to death. His mother and brother were sent to the gas chambers, murdered in cold, systematic silence. The world around him collapsed. Yet Frankl refused to surrender. He discovered that even in this hell, meaning could be found, not in the circumstances, but in how you respond to them. He realized that suffering itself could be transformed into a triumph of the human spirit. His survival was not just physical, but spiritual. Through the darkest nights, he held on to his purpose, his commitment to help others find meaning in their suffering. Frankl's story teaches us a powerful lesson. You can't always control what happens to you, but you can always control your attitude, your choice, and your reason to keep going. His philosophy, born in the depths of horror, became a beacon of hope for millions. It shows us that even when life is stripped to its barest bones, the search for meaning can light the way out of darkness. And maybe, just maybe, that same truth can guide you through your own struggles of a twisted ideology. Viktor Frankl's world shattered piece by piece. His wife, Tilly, was sent to a different camp, and he never saw her again. Around him, death was relentless. People crumbled under exhaustion, disease, or sheer despair. Those too weak to work were marched to the gas chambers. Others, desperate to escape the endless torment, threw themselves onto electric fences seeking a swift, merciful end. Every morning prisoners rose half-dead, hollow-eyed, starving to the barking orders of guards. Their daily life was a brutal cycle. Slave labor, beatings, starvation, cold, terror, repeat. It was a machine built to crush the human spirit. For most it succeeded, but Frankl noticed something strange. Not everyone gave up. Some, against all reason, kept fighting, despite the pain, the hopelessness. They clung to life with an unbreakable force. Why? Frankl, the psychiatrist, became Frankl, the observer. This nightmare camp turned into an unwilling laboratory, revealing truths about human resilience. Through endless hunger and exhaustion, he studied the prisoners. Those who had nothing left to live for deteriorated quickly. Their eyes lost fire, became dull and lifeless. They stopped eating, moving, caring. In Auschwitz, that meant death was near. But those who held even the smallest thread of purpose were different. Frankl saw an old man survive freezing nights because he dreamed of reuniting with his daughter. He met a young artist who quietly talked about the paintings he would create once freed. One evening, Frankl walked beside a scientist who had fallen into despair. The man confessed he had given up all hope, convinced there was no reason left to live. Frankl didn't offer empty comfort. Instead, he asked, "What if there's still something waiting for you after this?" The scientist barely responded. Frankl pressed on.
Your work.
The research unfinished. The books not yet written. Who else can finish them? A spark lit in the scientist's eyes. Something shifted. He straightened, as if reclaiming a buried piece of himself. He found a reason to survive. Frankl witnessed this over and over. Those with a why could endure almost any how. Through the endless horror, Frankl uncovered a profound truth that would shape his entire life. The Nazis could strip away family, possessions, dignity, but they could never steal one thing: the power to choose how to respond. Even in suffering, a man can decide, will he let the pain destroy him, or will he use it to create meaning? This wasn't just a philosophical idea for Frankl. It was survival. He imagined himself standing in a university lecture hall, sharing these discoveries with students. He pictured writing a book that would carry this message beyond the barbed wire and despair. That vision fueled him. Frankl believed meaning is the key that unlocks our resilience. When everything else is lost, purpose remains. It doesn't erase pain, but it transforms it into something bearable, even powerful. He came to understand that suffering itself can be meaningful if faced with courage and intention. After liberation, Frankl did write that book, Man's Search for Meaning, which has since inspired millions. His message is simple yet revolutionary. Life holds meaning under all circumstances, even the most brutal. You don't need to escape pain to survive. You need a reason to endure it. And that reason can be found in anything: a loved one, a dream, a goal, or the belief that your story matters. Viktor Frankl's journey is proof that no matter how dark the night, the human spirit can find light. His experience teaches us that meaning is not given, it is chosen. And through that choice, we reclaim our freedom. This story is not just history, it's a roadmap for anyone struggling today. Because in every moment of suffering, the question remains: what will you choose? Will you let life defeat you? Or will you find your why and hold on? That choice, that will, is the essence of what it means to be truly alive. Purpose carried him through the darkest depths of disease, starvation, and cruelty. Viktor Frankl held tight to one unwavering truth: suffering itself is empty, meaningless until we choose to fill it. When we do, pain becomes bearable. That belief, forged in the darkest moments of his life, was the lifeline that saved him. When Frankl finally stepped out of Auschwitz, he had lost everything: his family, his home, and any certainty about the future. But he carried something no prison or tormentor could steal: the profound realization that life only becomes unbearable when it loses meaning and purpose. That truth had kept him alive. Now he was driven to share it with the world. Returning to Vienna, the city of his birth, Frankl found it unrecognizable. The war had ravaged it. Streets once buzzing with ideas, music, and laughter stood silent, haunted by loss. His parents, brother, and wife were gone. Anyone else might have collapsed under such sorrow. But Frankl had learned something deeper from years inside the camp. Survival wasn't about physical strength or intelligence. It was about having a reason to keep going. Faced with his own unbearable grief, Frankl had a choice: surrender to despair or transform his pain into purpose. He chose purpose. In just 9 days, Frankl poured his soul onto paper. His book, Man's Search for Meaning, would go on to change millions of lives. Frankl's greatest gift to psychology came from a radical idea: human beings are driven not by pleasure, as Freud said, nor power, as Adler claimed, but by the search for meaning. From this insight, he created logotherapy, a revolutionary approach to mental health and resilience. Unlike traditional therapy, which often dug into past traumas, logotherapy looked forward. Instead of asking, "What do you want from life?" Frankl challenged people to ask, "What does life want from you?" This shift was powerful. It pulled people out of self-pity and pushed them toward responsibility. According to Frankl, meaning can be found through 3 vital paths. First, through work by creating something valuable or engaging in meaningful tasks. Even in Auschwitz, Frankl witnessed prisoners drawing strength from unfinished projects, a doctor dreaming of healing patients again, a writer imagining books yet unwritten. Second, through love. Frankl often said the thought of his wife Tilly kept him alive, even when he didn't know if she was still alive herself. Love, he realized, could transcend suffering, and even death. Third, through suffering itself, when pain is not avoided, but transformed into personal growth and resilience. This was the most radical of his discoveries. Meaning isn't only found in comfort or success, it can be forged in agony, if met with courage. Frankel's story teaches us that life will always have pain, but the difference between those who survive and those who don't is the meaning they attach to that pain. Meaning becomes a shield, a compass, a reason to endure the unbearable. He showed that even when everything is stripped away, family, freedom, dignity, there remains the final freedom, the freedom to choose your attitude, your response to any situation. This freedom, Frankl believed, is the essence of human existence. It means no matter how dark the night, no matter the depth of despair, you can find light if you search for your why. His legacy is not just a story of survival, it's a call to action, to face life's challenges with meaning as your guide. Because when life demands everything from you, what will you choose? Will you let suffering break you, or will you find purpose within it and rise? That choice, that powerful, unyielding choice, is the heart of what it means to truly live. Most people see suffering as pointless, a cruel burden to bear. But Viktor Frankl introduced a bold and controversial idea. If you can discover a purpose within your pain, you can survive almost anything. He often shared the story of a grieving man who came to him, shattered by the death of his wife. Instead of offering easy comfort, Frankl asked a question that changed everything. If you had died first, how would your wife have felt? The man answered quietly, she would have suffered terribly. Frankl nodded and said, then by living, you have spared her that suffering. Your pain now is the price you pay to protect her from that grief. The man left the session silent but carrying a new sense of meaning behind his pain. Logotherapy wasn't about getting stuck in the past, it was about taking responsibility for the present and the future. Frankl once treated a man drowning in despair, convinced his life had no value. Instead of diving into his childhood traumas, Frankl asked one simple but piercing question. Why haven't you ended your life yet? The man was caught off guard. After a moment's thought, he realized he still cared deeply about his family. That single spark gave him a reason to keep going. This is logotherapy in action, helping people shift from a mindset of suffering to one of significance. Why does logotherapy still matter today? Frankl's ideas aren't confined to surviving concentration camps. They speak to surviving life itself. Every one of us faces suffering, loss, failure, uncertainty. In those moments, our instinct is to ask, why me? But Frankl taught us to ask a different question. What can I do with this suffering? How can I turn this pain into meaning? The change in perspective transforms everything. His work has inspired millions, from patients battling depression to athletes pushing beyond limits, from grieving families to anyone searching for a deeper purpose. His message is clear and powerful. You cannot always control what happens to you, but you can always control how you respond. And in that response lies the key to meaning and to life itself. Viktor Frankl didn't just teach people how to survive, he taught them how to live. He witnessed unimaginable suffering firsthand. He saw prisoners in Auschwitz clutch to hope when everything else was lost. After the war, he met countless people trapped in depression, drowning in grief, desperate for a reason to continue. Frankl's message was unmistakable. Suffering is unavoidable, but meaning is always within your reach. In today's world, we're bombarded with the idea that happiness is the ultimate goal. Society tells us that if we find the perfect job, the perfect partner, or buy the right things, happiness will follow. But Frankl challenged this notion. He argued that chasing happiness directly often leads to emptiness, not fulfillment. Happiness isn't something you can hunt down. It must come as a byproduct of something greater. In other words, if you make happiness your target, you're always going to feel like something's missing. Frankl's insight was revolutionary, meaning not happiness is what truly sustains us. It's found in dedication to a cause, in loving relationships, and even in the way we face unavoidable suffering. When we discover meaning, we can endure hardships, rise after failure, and keep moving forward, even when hope feels faint. This isn't just a philosophy. It's a lifeline for anyone navigating life's darkest moments. So, the next time life knocks you down, remember Frankl's wisdom. Your suffering doesn't have to be meaningless. Ask yourself, what meaning can I find here? What purpose can I create from this pain? That question might just change everything. Is missing. But if you pursue meaning, happiness will follow as a byproduct. Frankl's greatest insight, the one that transformed lives, was this. You may not control what happens to you, but you always control how you respond. This idea wasn't abstract theory, it was forged in the fires of personal tragedy. Inside the concentration camps, everything had been stripped from him, his family, his work, his identity. But there was one thing the Nazis could never take: his ability to choose his response. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our power to choose. And in that choice lies our growth and our freedom. That, Frankl said, is the ultimate human freedom, to decide how we will respond to life, no matter how painful or unfair it becomes. Some of the most remarkable people in history, those who left a lasting mark, were not the ones who avoided suffering, but the ones who gave it meaning. Frankl witnessed this over and over after the war. He worked with terminally ill patients, people who knew their time was running out. But instead of collapsing under the weight of despair, many found profound purpose in their final days. One man, gravely ill, told Frankl, "Doctor, I cannot avoid dying, but I can choose to die with dignity." That shift from helplessness to purpose changed everything. These patients didn't focus on what they had lost. They focused on what they could still give. And that, Frankl believed, is the key to a meaningful life. This message flies in the face of today's culture. We're taught to chase comfort, ease, instant joy. We're told that happiness comes from avoiding pain and maximizing pleasure. But Frankl saw it differently. He believed that meaning, not comfort, is the true source of fulfillment, that a meaningful life isn't necessarily a painless one. It's often a life of struggle, of sacrifice, of showing up when it's hard, a parent staying up all night with a feverish child.
Not easy, but meaningful. An artist wrestling with doubt to finish their greatest work, not easy, but meaningful.
A person standing for justice, even when it costs them everything, not easy, but deeply meaningful. The most powerful moments in our lives rarely come from ease. They come from effort, from choosing to rise, from pain that we refuse to waste. So how do we apply Frankl's wisdom in our own lives? If you're feeling lost, if purpose feels far away, start with 3 questions. What work can I commit to? Not just a job. A mission. What can you build, create, improve, or give? Meaning often comes from contribution. Who do I love, and who loves me? Meaning lives in connection. It thrives in our relationships. Who relies on you? Who do you choose to show up for? Even when it's hard, how can I transform my suffering into strength? Not by denying it, not by escaping it, but by giving it meaning. Is there someone you can help because of what you've been through? Is there a story only you can tell? Pain is part of life, but meaningless pain is unbearable. Give your pain a purpose, and it becomes power. This was Frankl's gift to the world. Not a formula, not a shortcut, but a compass. One that still points true, even in our darkest hours. Slips away the moment it becomes the goal. But when we pursue meaning, when we dedicate ourselves to something larger than ourselves, happiness follows quietly, naturally, like a shadow. That's the legacy of Viktor Frankl. He didn't promise an easy life. He didn't offer quick fixes or motivational slogans. He gave us something deeper, something unshakable, a new lens through which to view our suffering, a path not around pain, but through it. Frankl's teachings didn't end with the camps. They found their way into classrooms, therapy rooms, boardrooms, and homes. His book Man's Search for Meaning has reached every corner of the globe, comforting those in grief, guiding those in crisis, inspiring those in pursuit of purpose. He helped trauma survivors reclaim their identity. He helped returning soldiers rediscover what they were fighting for. He helped athletes push through injury, and artists push through doubt. He helped ordinary people just like you transform their ordinary suffering into extraordinary strength. His core message: life isn't about dodging hardship. It's about finding something worth enduring it for. And once you do, once you find your why, you unlock a resilience you never knew existed. You don't just get through the pain, you grow from it. You rise from it. You thrive because of it. Frankl's ideas aren't just buried in textbooks or remembered in quotes. They live on in action in every person who decides to get up one more time than they fall. In every person who turns heartbreak into healing. In every person who chooses to create, love, serve, or fight for something greater than themselves. You don't need to be imprisoned to feel trapped. You don't need to lose everything to feel empty. Suffering is part of being human. But how you respond, that's where the meaning lies. So when life hits you, when the job disappears, when the relationship ends, when the future looks like a blank wall, don't just ask why me. Ask what can this pain teach me? How can I grow through this? Who can I help because of this? Two people can go through the same fire. One is destroyed, the other is refined. The difference, meaning. So if you're hurting right now, if life feels heavy, uncertain, unfair, you are not broken. You are being shaped. Frankel's life is proof that even in the deepest darkness, we can find light. That even in suffering, we can find purpose. That even in loss, we can find something to give. The world today tells us to chase happiness. Frankel tells us to chase meaning, because meaning doesn't vanish when the lights go out. It glows even brighter. Pain is inevitable, but suffering, when given meaning, becomes power. And power, when used wisely, becomes purpose. So don't run from your pain, walk through it, and let it lead you somewhere true. The thing you face may not be fair. It might hurt. It might knock the wind out of you. But it could also be the moment that defines you. Frankel reminded us that we don't need ideal circumstances to live a fulfilling life. We need a reason. A why. Because when you have a why, you can endure almost any how. Let's talk about those 3 paths to meaning in a real personal way. First, work. Not just your job, but any effort that brings value to others, or builds something meaningful. It could be launching a business that solves a problem. It could be mentoring someone who needs guidance. It could be making music, writing stories, volunteering, inventing, teaching. When you're involved in something bigger than your own pleasure, you find purpose. You stop counting hours. You start feeling alive. Second, love. Real, deep connection. The kind that makes you feel seen, heard, needed. Frankel held on to his wife's memory through unimaginable pain. That love wasn't fragile. It was fuel. And it didn't need physical presence to exist. Whether it's a partner, a friend, a child, or even a cause, love expands us. It reminds us that life isn't just about me. It's about we. Third, suffering. It's the one we all try to avoid, but the one that often teaches us the most. Not all pain is avoidable, but almost all pain is shapeable. It can make you bitter, or it can make you bold. It can close you off, or open you up. It depends on the story you tell yourself about the pain. Is this something happening to you, or something happening for you so you can grow, evolve, empathize, lead? Ask yourself, what challenge am I currently facing that might be teaching me something I'll need later? What can I create from this? Who might I be able to help someday? Because I walked through this fire and didn't burn. Frankel's most radical idea was also his most empowering. You don't get to choose your suffering, but you do get to choose your response. And that choice, made over and over again, is where meaning lives. It's not about pretending the pain doesn't exist. It's about asking, what now? How can I use this? How can I show up, not just for myself, but for others? This kind of thinking isn't just inspirational, it's transformational. The world around you may not change, but the world within you will. You'll stop being a victim of your circumstances. You'll start becoming the author of your story. Even when life takes from you, there's always something left. The freedom to choose your next move. And that freedom, that's the beginning of meaning. So if you're tired, if you're hurting, if you're lost, pause, breathe, and ask, what matters to me? Even in this moment. What can I give? Even in this pain. What small act can bring light? Even in the dark. The answer to those questions is not just meaning, it's your way forward. Will I make? Not just when things are easy, but when everything feels impossible. That's the moment your story shifts. That's the moment you stop waiting for life to hand you happiness and start building something greater. Frankel never promised that meaning would come quickly. He never claimed it would be easy, but he knew, from the darkest places on earth, that it was always possible. You don't need a perfect life to live with purpose. You don't need all the answers to take the first step. All you need is the courage to ask a better question. What can I do with this? That question turns pain into purpose. It turns loss into love. It turns survival into strength. And the beauty of it You don't need anyone's permission to begin. Every day, you get to choose how you show up. Even when you're hurting. Even when you're afraid. Even when nothing makes sense. Especially then, meaning doesn't arrive in grand epiphanies. It reveals itself in small, quiet acts. In showing up for someone when you want to disappear. In doing the work no one sees, because you know it matters. In saying, I will keep going, even when your legs shake beneath you. Frankel's gift to us was not a map. It was a mirror, one that shows you the power already inside you. The power to suffer with dignity. To love in the face of loss. To build a life that reflects your values, not your circumstances. So if you're lost, if you're tired, if you feel like you're falling behind, stop chasing what the world says will complete you. Start searching for what gives your life depth, because fulfillment doesn't come from avoiding pain. It comes from embracing it, learning from it, transforming it. Ask yourself now, who do I want to be when life doesn't go my way? What story will I tell about the struggles I've faced? Will I run from them, or rise through them? This is what it means to live with meaning. To take the worst thing that's ever happened to you, and say, this is not the end of my story. You are not powerless. You are not broken. You are human. And that means you get to choose what comes next. Frankel's voice echoes across time, not because he avoided suffering, but because he stared it in the face and chose love, strength, and purpose anyway. That choice is yours now. So take it, not someday. Not when you feel ready. Now. Because this moment, this breath, this life, is your opportunity to create meaning. To offer love, to live with courage. You will face pain. But you don't have to be defined by it. You can transform it, and when you do, you won't just find meaning. You'll become it. What decision can I make today that adds meaning to my life? That's not just a question, it's a challenge. Because meaning isn't a prize you win, or a blessing that lands in your lap. It's something you forge, piece by piece, choice by choice. You create it through your work, the kind that stretches you, frustrates you, pushes you to your limits, not just for a paycheck, but because it builds something that outlives you, a story, a legacy, a reason. You create it through love, the raw, vulnerable kind, the kind that shows up in the quiet moments when no one's watching, when you're tired, but you listen anyway, when you're scared, but you stay, when it would be easier to walk away, but you fight for them instead. You create it through your suffering. Yes, even that. Not by pretending it doesn't hurt, but by letting the pain teach you something. By asking, what can this show me? What strength is hiding on the other side of this? Because every scar you carry is a reminder that you endured, and endurance isn't weakness, it's wisdom. We live in a world that tells you to chase comfort, to collect moments of pleasure, to curate a highlight reel of perfection. But meaning laughs at perfection. Meaning lives in the mess, in the struggle, in the moments where you're not sure you can keep going. But you do. That's the paradox. The more you run from discomfort, the more lost you feel. But when you face it, when you lean into the storm, you find out who you really are. Frankel understood this better than anyone. He had everything stripped away. His home, his freedom, his family. But there was one thing they couldn't touch. His response, his will, his meaning. And that is the key. You can't control every event in your life. You can't predict who will hurt you, what you'll lose, or how long the night will last. But you can decide what those moments mean. You can give your pain a purpose. You can let it harden you, or you can let it shape you. The truth is, there's no finish line where life finally makes sense. No perfect formula. No guarantee of happiness. But there is always this moment. And in this moment, you have power. The power to choose how you show up. The power to forgive, to try again, to be kind when it's hard. The power to do one small thing today that your future self will thank you for. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to take one step in the direction of meaning. Say something honest. Help someone who can't repay you. Start something you believe in. That's where meaning begins. Not in answers, but in action. Not in what happens to you, but in what you do next. So if you're waiting for your life to become meaningful, stop waiting. Make it meaningful. And when you do, when you give your life to something bigger than yourself, you'll find that no setback, No loss, no failure can take that away from you. That's the legacy Frankl left behind. Not a blueprint, but a truth. You are free to choose. You are free to transform. You are free to rise. Everything else is up to you.